We're going to look back at the end of the 2023 season, and we're going to examine this team and try to find out who were the best players in 2023. I'm going to name the 10 best players this year for the Jaguars in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you, y'all, for joining me again here today on Locked On Jaguars. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. A quick reminder that we are free to subscribe to on our YouTube page, so make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell to get notifications whenever we drop an episode. Also, wherever you listen to your audio podcast, make sure you tap in every single day on that platform to make sure you don't miss an episode. I want to give a special shout out to our everydayers. If you came back for the second time, you're an everydayer now, so you're included in that group. Thank you for coming back. And anybody who's new to the podcast today, come on back and we'll call you an everydayer too. What is going on, man? We are getting closer and closer to training camp. Less than a week before the season gets started. So in today's show, I'm going to do what we always do here that kind of sometimes might tick a fan off. We're going to act like the season just ended, right? So I'm not going to give you a record. I'm not going to tell you how things went. I'm going to tell you that I woke up today and the season ended, right? And I got to retrospectively look back and tell you who the 10 best players on this team were. I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to do it right now. First of all, I'm not going to say whether or not they won the Super Bowl or whether or not they made a run or how they did whatever. I will tell you this. You'll either be happy or you'll feel incomplete, but you won't feel sad because I don't think they're going to backtrack. All right. So I'll give you that much. I don't think the team is going to slide back to a point where you're reminded of when they were in football purgatory. We're just going to say you're either going to be overjoyed and elated and have a hangover coming back from Las Vegas on a plane, or you'll be like, okay, I can deal with that. We're on our way. So there, we're going to leave it at that. We're not going to say what the result was, except that we will say the result is not going to be a bad one. All right. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to start with number one. And then because it's obvious that the best player on the team is Trevor Lawrence. So I'm going to start with number one, and I'm going to work my way back from 10 all the way to number 2. And if you really read the tea leaves or look between the lines, this will kind of give you an idea of how I think the season will go. And if these guys end up exactly where I have them ending up, then that'll tell you that the season probably was a success. So we'll say that. But like to what degree of what success, that is yet to be determined, because what I won't do is ruin all the suspense and all the fun. And hell, I don't know the answer anyway. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to tell you that I know exactly how things are going to go, because I don't. But what I will say is pay attention and look at what it's going to bode well for the future. Also, what is absent on this list now, just because somebody didn't make the top 10 doesn't mean they're not a good player, because that means that the Jaguars are elevated. There were times when we struggled to find 10 really good players on this team. There was times when we struggled to find 4 really good players or people that deserve to be on this team. So there's a second group of 10 here. That's fine. Some of them will be older veterans that just make a great contribution. Other ones would be, those are the honorable mention cats, and I won't mention them, but when this is all said and done, you're going to know who they are. It might be young guys that are building their resume to trend towards getting better and are the developmental stars and the guys that might be dependent on more in 2024. But it might give you a little bit of glimpse too of where I think they not might struggle, but where they might realize that they need to upgrade and they're not good enough. And just like last year, before last season, everybody goes, love the Christian Kirk edition, but they're going to need a number 1 receiver. They went and got him. I think John Shipley, I told John the other day when I saw him, I said, I give you a lot of credit on my show. He says, I listen. So John Shipley said last year before the season, at the end of this year, they're going to need the number 1 wide receiver. And he was dead right. Okay. And so moving on, that's what we're going to do. Who will be the 10 best Jaguars in 2023? Start with the quarterback. Trevor Lawrence has an awful lot to do with how I feel about why this team is going to do what they're going to do. Trevor Lawrence isn't just the best football player on this team. Trevor Lawrence is probably the best football player in the AFC South. And I think by the end of the year, he will be one of the 5 or 6 best football players in the NFL, regardless of position. Of course, quarterback will always carry more weight because a quarterback carries more weight. But Trevor is at the top of this, not just the physical aspects of it. Of course, you take all of that stuff, but I believe it's his intangibles. I believe it's his leadership ability, it's the intangibles. And I think when guys are around him, they absolutely believe that they're going to win. And I think that is extremely important for a quarterback. All right, so before we get to segment 2, I'm going to name a few people. I'm going to name a few players. I'm going to start at number 10. And I know people are going to get all over me about this. The 10th best player in retrospect, because remember, the season is ended, is Josh Allen. And I know some of y'all think that that's low for me. That's low for Josh. And I know some people might be thinking, Wig, there you go picking on Josh Allen again. What is it with you and Josh Allen? It's nothing with me and Josh Allen. I'm going to just use what the Jaguars have or haven't done to show you that everyone that argues with me about Josh Allen is wrong. The Jaguars, the way they feel about Josh Allen is probably the way I feel about Josh Allen. And I'm not going to put words in their mouth. I'm not going to talk about anything I heard off the record, even though I did. And it's not negative. It's not terrible. If the Jaguars thought Josh Allen was a number 1 edge rusher, he was pass rush 1 or edge 1, they would not have drafted Trayvon number 1. They would have drafted Sauce Gardner. Because, yeah, having a buddy on the other side helps the pass rush, but you know what else helps the pass rush? Having a lockdown corner. That's what they'd have done. Or Derek Stingley. But they didn't. They drafted him. Also, if the Jaguars thought, if their thought process was equal to how a lot of folks argue with me about Josh Allen, he'd be under contract already. He would already signed an extension because he's an edge rusher. He's a number 1 pick. He's a real good guy. He doesn't have any red flags off the field, but he's playing under a 5th-year option for a reason. You don't see T.J. Watt or Myles Garrett or Joey Bosa. See, those are the guys, or Nick Bosa. Those are the guys that everyone argues with me as if that's what Josh is. But somehow Josh is doing something that none of them are doing. End of discussion. That's it. Period. Point blank. That's it. You just heard what I just said. That does not mean he's bad. I think Josh is what Josh is. Josh is going to have a year this year just like the rest of the years he's had. Really, really good NFL player. To be the 10th best player on a team that's a playoff team is pretty damn good. But folks want to argue with me like he's Chris Jones or somebody like that. And he's just not. He's not that guy. He's just not. I'm going to name one more. Number 9, my 9th best player is going to be a guy that won't touch the ball very much, but when he does touch the ball, electric things will happen. And that's Jamal Agnew. Special teams is where you get an edge when teams are equal. Jamal Agnew is so good at returns, especially kick returns. In a tight game, if he catches it 8 yards deep, he's coming out. Most of the time, that's a kneel down or a touchback for other teams. That is not that way for him. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if teams just tried to kick the ball and squib kick it out of bounds, or kick it so they angle it so that it goes out of bounds in the end zone, not in the field of play, to not give him a chance to touch it. He's dangerous. And the 1 or 2 plays that they'll decide to run him from scrimmage, he's going to be even more dangerous. So that is where I'm at with that, man. Those are the 2. That's number 10 and number 8, Josh Allen, edge rusher Josh Allen. Number 9 is Jamal Agnew. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think anyway. I know some people. I can already tell you what's going to happen, man. Everybody's going to get all over me. All right, so hang tight. I'm going to run from like 8 to like number 5, 8, 7, 6, and 5, and maybe even get number 4 before I get to the other guys that are underneath Trevor. I'll do all of that in just a few seconds here on Locked On Jaguars. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the very best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to give you and provide you players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. So with draft prep underway for the upcoming season, let's see who Vinny has picked out for us this week on eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. All right, now check this out. I picked 12th in one of my drafts, right? So this is perfect for me. Looking to make a smooth transition or turn in fantasy football snake drafts with the last pick in the first round or the first pick in the second round, catch an initial spark off your roster, you got CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown. I'm going with CeeDee Lamb, and the reason why I'm going with CeeDee Lamb is because it's going to get more opportunities because A.J. Brown has better teammates, and they're going to spread the ball around a little bit, and they more or less favor the run more than the pass. So I'm going with CeeDee Lamb in Dallas's new-look passing game to get the big numbers while with Brown and Jalen Hurts revving down the field. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going with CeeDee Lamb over A.J. Brown. Now, Vinny I from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championships. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it. And they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forth and switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look at the green check, get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items, exclusions apply. All right, running it down here on Locked On Jaguars. We're doing the 10 best Jags at the end of 2023. So far, we've established that Trevor Lawrence is number one. That is the obvious. Call me Captain Obvious, but it is what it is, and that's a really good number one to have because I think your number one here in Jacksonville is a top 6 player in the league by the time the season ends. Josh Allen is 10th. Going backwards, Edge Josh Allen is 10th. I think he has a good, solid season. I think the type of season he has can be defined in 2 words, Josh Allen. Not what you think he is, but what he has been for his first 4 seasons here in Jacksonville. Jamal Agnew, I think he is going to just be Jamal Agnew is like instant grits. Just add hot water and watch it work. That's what it is. All you need is just a drop, and he's going to just do what he has to do. So he doesn't need to sit there and braise all day and cook. Nope. Just get him out of the pantry, put some water in, boom, there it is, it's ready to go. And that's what he's going to be with those 6 or 7 touches that he gets per game and how he affects the kicking game for the other team. Number 8, I'm going with Foye Oluwakan. I think you cannot keep ignoring a guy that is consistently one of the top tacklers in the NFL, and I think it gets more notice once the team starts winning. Hard worker, they call him James Brown, the hardest working man in show business or the hardest working man on the Jaguars team. I think that stuff is contagious, and I don't think that stops. I believe he makes a tremendous impact, the same impact that he's made the first 2 years the first year he's been here and the last 3 years that he's played in the NFL. Number 7, I'm going with Travis Etienne, the running back. And you say, Wig, that might be a little bit low. So what this does, it sets it up for you. If I tell you there's going to be 6 players ahead of Travis Etienne this year, and I think last year he probably was number 2 or number 3, you're going to say, well, damn, who are those people that are going to be that high, right? Who are those people that are going to be that high? I think it's going to be Travis Etienne. Now, I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to tell you something. I am not putting Evan Ingram or Christian Kirk in the top 10. But it has absolutely nothing to do with whether I think they'll fall off, whether or not it's all statistics-based, and I don't think that's what it is. This is all about opportunity. This is about opportunity, and it's about how the team changes. a little bit. I'll give you an example. I just talked about A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith, is he a top 10 Eagles player? Maybe, maybe not, because A.J. Brown came and kind of pushed him down the ladder a little bit. But he's still really good, even if he's number 11, right? He's still really good. On a team that wins, I just think this year, opportunities will present themselves a little bit differently. And now he got an opportunity for some people ahead of Travis Etienne, and I'm going to tell you who they are. This will give you a hint of what I feel will be one of the strengths of this team this year. I think the sixth best player in retrospect will be Devon Hamilton. That's right. I said it. I think that big defensive tackle is going to get all of the notice, and he's going to put the league on notice, and he's going to serve notice that D-Ham has arrived. He has the package of a guy that's 335 pounds, and I don't want him to come jack me up if he ain't that big. Maybe he's 328. But for the sake of this show today, he's 335 because it sounds more imposing, okay? So we're going to say that Devon Hamilton extended. You see what happens when teams think about you. They show it to you with a stroke of a pen and a direct deposit. He extended. He's here for the next few years. He looks the part. He has this, the guy his size usually isn't a great pass rusher. He can actually create a lot of damage up front from the middle of the line and knock the quarterback off of his square and make the quarterback do a lot of scrambling. So I say Devon Hamilton is player number 6. Number 5 will be Tyson Campbell. That's right. He's going to serve notice to people. Anybody that left him off of the top 20 corners in the league, and I've seen several lists this offseason that did it, Tyson Campbell is going to come up with some balls this year. He is going to lock down some receivers. He is going to be physical. He is going to protect that first down line with his physical style of play. I think Tyson Campbell is going to be the 5th best player this season for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I really, really do. I think he's underrated. I think he has a quiet nature about him. He plays football a certain type of way that while he doesn't make a ton of plays, he doesn't give up hardly any. And I think in a passing league, he's going to cause these young quarterbacks to make some mistakes. And all it takes is Tyson Campbell to run one or two of them back, and people will start looking at him a lot different. I want to get to the last 3. I know it's 4 left, but I'm going with 3 because y'all already know who number 1 is. It's Trevor Lawrence. And then what I'll do is I'll tie all of this up and I'll show you what I believe without telling you what I think the team's going to do. I know a couple of months I said they're going to go 14-3. I probably need to pipe down a little bit, but I'm going to kind of give you the image that I believe this team will have this year. And I'll do all of that in just a second here as we get to segment 3 on today's episode of Locked On Jaguars. All right, segment 3 here on Locked On Jaguars. I want to remind you to make sure you watch Locked On NFL. Great clip floating around about me and James Rapine talking about Bill Belichick and whether or not Bill should be on the hot seat. Make sure you check that out. Also, as you continue to get ready for your fantasy draft, tap into Vinny Iyer at Locked On NFL Draft. Locked On Fantasy Football. You will absolutely love what Vinny has to say, and he does not steer you wrong. You can see where your favorite team, where those players are lining up in the fantasy draft, and Vinny will help you out and square your way before you start yours. Now, quick recap. Number 10, Josh Allen. Number 9, Jamal Agnew. Number 8, Foye Oluokun. Number 7, Travis Etienne. Number 6, Devon Hamilton. Number 5, Tyson Campbell. Here's where it gets a little bit dicey, and I'm a little bit biased. I got to admit, 2 of these last 3, these are gut feelings. These are gut feelings, but they're also feelings that if these things happen, there's going to be a tremendous amount of optimism for what may occur this season and what the future looks like. I think the 4th best player on this year's team will be a guy that I've compared to Earl Thomas, and that is Andre Cisco. There is something about someone who is that sudden, who causes that much ruckus on a team, who plays with that speed and that level of physicality, that makes me believe Now, all of these things are contingent on everyone in here on this list staying healthy. But I think Andre Cisco will probably get some all-pro consideration this year. And he'll be the first one from that position to do that in an awful long time, since maybe Rasheem Mathis played a little safety when he first came into the league, right? I just think Andre Cisco is that guy. I've seen him up close. His body continues to transform, the confidence, the leadership, the way he commands the respect of players without doing a lot of barking. Andre Cisco, to me, man, is about to be a superstar right before your eyes. So I want you to pay attention to something. 6, 5, and 4. Hamilton, Campbell, Cisco. Defense, defense, defense. Oluwakan is number 8, and Josh Allen is number 10. That's 5 guys. 5 of the back 7 are all defensive players. And I omitted 2 offensive players that everyone loves. Why am I able to do that? I'll tell you why I'm able to do it. It's because I think there is more blue sky and there is more room for improvement from Mike Caldwell and his crew. I think what you saw at the end of the year from Trevor, I think they add a couple of pieces. You know what you can get from them. For this team to really take a substantial jump, Mike Caldwell and his team are going to have to play the way they played down the stretch last year when they were behind in some games. And I think the biggest leap, the most room to grow is on that side of the ball. And I think the continuity of having that staff in there for a whole nother year and everybody growing together, that's where most of the improvement is going to be. And I think it's going to just make this team so much better, and they're going to get a lot of credit for it. So we're going with Andre Cisco at number 4. Number 3, and I know you've been dying and waiting to hear this one. Yep, Calvin Ridley will be the 3rd best player on this team this year. I think Calvin Ridley catches over 90 balls. I think Calvin Ridley goes for 1,300 yards. And I think Calvin Ridley catches 8 to 10 touchdowns. That's why I believe with the addition of Tank Bigsby, with the spot play of Jamal Agnew, with the addition of Brenton Strange and the return of Evan Ingram and all of these pieces, and maybe Parker Washington gets in on the back end a little bit, I just think everything's going to spread around so much. This is going to be a team that has an alpha and some others. And each week, the others are not going to always be the ones that make the contribution. Some days it's going to be Ingram. Some days it's going to be Kirk. Some days it's going to be Zay. But the one constant is Calvin Ridley is going to be a constant threat every single week. And Calvin Ridley also is going to be pushing for some all-pro votes by the end of this season. All right, we're getting to the top 2. You know who number 1 is. Drum roll, please. Number 2 on this team, I think this kid makes a huge jump, and it's not just because I want to, although I will admit that a lot of this is want to. I just believe in his ability. I believe in him. I went back and watched a lot of tape. I watched some Georgia tape. I watched some tape this year. I have seen him up close. Trayvon Walker is going to let everyone in the NFL know exactly why he was the number 1 pick in the draft. I think Trayvon Walker has a monster year. If you go back and look at some games he had and some plays that he made, whether it's an interception or a sack, he only had 2.5, or some crushing hits behind the line, or he caused like 2 or 3 fumbles on some tackles. He batted some balls down. I think what happens now, instead of you seeing that potential sort of spread out, I think he starts to do that stuff all game and for long stretches. And I really believe, because this is the first time in a long time, it's since high school, that he has one thing to do. He has one job to do, as opposed to having his ability just moving him around, taking the best. No, he has one thing and one focus. And he told me with his own mouth, I do what they ask me to do, and I don't go outside of the scheme. I stay in it. That is exactly what I wanted to hear, because that means that young man understands it and he gets it. Focus on one thing and be great at that one thing. And I think he knows the scheme. I think he's learned the scheme better. I think Trayvon Walker ends up the 2nd best player on the team behind Trevor Lawrence. So that would mean that the 2 players you picked with the number 1 overall picks in consecutive years actually play that way. I believe he gets over 10 sacks. And I believe he is the most dominant player on a defense that's going to win a bunch of games this year. I just named 6 defensive players on this list. That means the defense is going to step up and play a lot better. It's going to change the way this team looks a little bit. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. I think they're going to really spread it around. I think they're going to keep the other team's defense on the field a lot. And I think they're going to give Trevor enough leeway to get him 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns and very few interceptions, because teams aren't going to know what they're doing. And they're going to do everything well enough. In their absence, I have to tell you about the offensive line. I just think there's too much unknown coming into the season with injuries and suspensions and guys having to really show up. And inexperience with Anton Harrison. I think they'll be fine. They'll fall into that category of that's not a weakness of the team. But I do think it'll still be an area that they'll address in the offseason, in the draft, and might maybe in the first 3 rounds hit the offensive line twice to say, let's just go ahead and take it over the top and shore it up. So no, I didn't put any offensive linemen on this list, although Luke Fortner I think is going to be very improved and could fall into that next group of 5. And then we'll see what Walker Little has going on once the season gets going. All right, man, that's today's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know you'll disagree with me on some of it. Go ahead and hit me in the comment section and on social media. And I'll make sure I get you another show before the week is out here on Locked On Jaguars so you can enjoy as we get ready for training camp, because next week it is full throttle. All right? We are breaking speed limits next week when it comes to Jaguars coverage. Until then, you guys take care. And take care of each other, and I'll see you tomorrow on Locked On Jaguars.